The transport ship Stella Dawn shuddered as it docked with Colony Station Beta 9. Keisha pressed her face against the small porthole, watching the red dust swirl across the landing platform. 3 months in cryosleep had left her muscles stiff, but her heart raced with anticipation. Today she would finally meet Hansolkim, the mining engineer who had answered her profile on the Interstellar Marriage Registry. The airlock hissed open, and Keisha stepped onto the platform clutching her worn suitcase. The artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth's, making her feel like she might float away. Beta 9's twin suns blazed overhead, casting everything in an orange glow that made the colony buildings look like ancient ruins. She scanned the small crowd gathered at the arrival gate, expecting to see a tall Korean man with kind eyes holding a welcome sign. Instead, her gaze fell on a group of children huddled together near the security checkpoint. The oldest, a girl with long black hair tied back with a frayed ribbon, kept glancing nervously in her direction. "Excuse me." Keisha approached a colony worker. "I'm looking for Hansolkim. He was supposed to meet me here." The worker's expression darkened. "Kim, you mean the family from Sector 7, ma'am. I'm sorry, but Hansol died in the mine collapse 3 weeks ago. Terrible tragedy." Keisha's suitcase slipped from her numb fingers, hitting the metal floor with a dull thud. 3 months of travel, her life savings spent on the journey, everything she owned sold back on Earth. And now, Miss Keisha, the teenage girl approached hesitantly. Her voice carried a slight tremor. "You are Miss Keisha Washington, right? From Atlanta." "How do you know my name?" Keisha's voice barely worked. "I'm Sorokim. This is my family." The girl gestured to the other children behind her. "Our father. He told us all about you before he died." Keisha looked at the 6 other faces staring at her with a mixture of hope and fear. Jinho, 14 years old, tried to stand tall like the man of the family, but his shoulders sagged under invisible weight. Mina, 12, held the hand of 10-year-old Taiwu, whose wide eyes reminded Keisha of her little brother back home. 8-year-old Yuna clutched a small stuffed animal that had seen better days, while 6-year-old Jamin hid partially behind his older sister. The youngest, Yunji, barely 4 years old, sucked her thumb and stared at Keisha with curious brown eyes. Their clothes told a story of struggle. Patched pants, shirts with faded colors, shoes held together with synthetic tape. These children had been surviving on their own for 3 weeks. "Miss Keisha," Sora continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, "I need to tell you something important. The messages you received from our father these past few weeks, I sent them." Keisha blinked. "What?" "After the mine accident, I found his personal communicator. I read all your letters, learned how you wrote to each other. I pretended to be him." Tears began sliding down Sora's cheeks. "I know it was wrong, but if you didn't come, social services would take us away. They want to split us up, send us to different foster families across the galaxy." A mining transport rumbled overhead, its engines drowning out the sounds of the busy spaceport. Keisha watched automated cargo loaders moving containers while her mind tried to process this information. She had come here expecting to start a new life with a husband. Instead, she found 7 orphan children who had been desperate enough to forge communications from their dead father. The colony administrator already came to our apartment twice. Jinho spoke up, his voice trying to sound brave. He said, "Without an adult guardian, we can't stay together. Yunji would go to a family on Mars. Jamin and Yuna might get sent to the agricultural colonies. The rest of us—" He shrugged helplessly. Little Yunji toddled forward and tugged on Keisha's jacket. "Hungry," she said in her tiny voice. Keisha knelt down to the child's level, up close. She could see how thin Yunji's face had become. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her clothes hung loose on her small frame. "When did you last eat?" Keisha asked Sora. "Yesterday morning. We shared some protein rations, but they're almost gone." Keisha looked round the spaceport, families reunited, with hugs and laughter. Business people hurried past with their important cargo. Life continued normally for everyone except these 7 children who had been left behind by tragedy. A security droid rolled by, its sensors scanning for trouble in the distance. She could hear the announcement for the next outbound transport. To Earth, her return ticket was still valid. She could leave this place, go back home, and pretend this never happened. But as she looked into 7 pairs of hopeful eyes, Keisha realized something had already changed inside her heart. The hover taxi wound through the narrow streets of Beta 9's residential sector, past towering mining equipment and glowing neon signs advertising off-world goods. Keisha pressed her face to the window, watching automated repair drones fix damaged buildings, while alien traders from the Centauri systems haggled over rare minerals at street-side stalls. "This is it," Sora said quietly as the taxi stopped outside the weathered apartment complex. The building's metal walls showed scorch marks from recent dust storms, and several windows were covered with protective energy shields instead of glass. They climbed 3 flights of stairs, Yoonji riding piggyback on Jinho's shoulders. The little girl's breathing was labored, and Keisha noticed how the older boy struggled under her weight despite his attempts to appear strong. The apartment door slid open with a grinding sound that suggested the mechanism needed repair. Keisha stepped inside and immediately understood the magnitude of what these children had been facing alone. Bills covered every surface of the small dining table. Energy payments, food credits, apartment rent, medical fees from their fathers, accident. Red warning notices blinked on several holographic displays, threatening service shutdowns. The main room was barely larger than Keisha's old bedroom back on Earth, but somehow housed sleeping mats for 7 children. The food synthesizer broke down last week, Mina explained, pointing to a device that flickered with intermittent power. "We've been eating emergency rations." But she opened a cabinet to reveal 3 small packets of compressed nutrients. Keisha walked to the window and looked out at the colony's main street. Below, she could see families going about their daily lives, as Ephraim merchant with blue-scaled skin sold exotic fruits from his floating cart. Children from other families played in the recreation area, their laughter echoing off the metal buildings. Life continued normally for everyone except the 7 souls trapped in this apartment. "Our father used to fix things for other families," Taiwu said, holding up a broken quantum wrench. "But without proper tools, we can't earn credits like he did." Yuno tugged on Keisha's sleeve. "Miss Keisha, are you going to stay with us?" The question hung in the air like smoke from the industrial district. Keisha turned to face 7 expectant faces, each one carrying a different expression of hope, mixed with fear of rejection. "I came here to be a wife, not a mother to 7 children," she said, the words coming out harsher than she intended. Jinho's face crumpled slightly, but he straightened his shoulders and stepped forward. "We understand if you want to leave. The next transport to Earth comes in 2 days. We save some credits to pay for your return ticket if you need it." Keisha looked at this 14-year-old boy trying to be the man of the family. His voice cracked slightly, betraying his youth, but his determination reminded her of her own younger brother who had died in the resource wars back on Earth. "You don't have to worry about us," Sora added quickly. "We've managed this long. Maybe we can figure out something before social services comes back." But even as she spoke, little Yoonji stumbled while trying to reach her stuffed animal. The 4-year-old's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor with a soft whimper. Keisha rushed to her side, feeling how warm the child's forehead was. "When did she last see a doctor?" Keisha asked, cradling Yoonji against her chest. 3 weeks ago, after Father's accident, Sora admitted, "We can't afford medical credits anymore." Through the thin walls, Keisha could hear the sounds of normal family life. A mother calling her children for dinner, a father helping with homework, the gentle hum of properly functioning appliances, and the warm laughter of people who weren't struggling to survive. An announcement crackled through the colony's communication system. "Attention residents, the next Earthbound transport departs. In 48 hours, passengers should report to the spaceport 2 hours before departure." Keisha closed her eyes and thought about her small apartment back in Atlanta. Her job at the data processing center, her quiet, predictable life where the biggest worry was whether to buy real coffee or synthetic. She could return to all of that, pretend this never happened. These children weren't her responsibility, but as Yoonji's small hand curled around her finger, Keisha felt something shift inside her chest. She looked round the apartment again, this time seeing not just the problems but the possibilities, the family photos on the wall showing happier times. The carefully maintained cleanliness despite their poverty, the way the older children protected the younger ones. A cargo ship thundered overhead, its engines shaking the building as it carried precious metals to distant worlds. In the distance, she could see the spaceport's landing lights, where her escape route waited. "Show me what needs to be done," she said quietly. The words surprised her even as she spoke them. 7 faces looked up at her with sudden hope. And Keisha realized she had just made the most important decision of her life. The morning alarm shined through the apartment at exactly 0630 hours, just as it had every day for the past 3 weeks. Keisha smiled as she heard the familiar sounds of 7 children getting ready for their day. The chaos that once filled these small rooms had been replaced by organized routine. "Damon, your school tablet is charged and ready," she called out. While checking the food synthesizer's daily menu, the machine hummed efficiently now, thanks to the repair credits she'd spent from her Earth savings. Fresh protein bars and vitamin-enriched juice materialized in the dispenser slots. Little Yoonji toddled into the kitchen area, her cheeks now pink with health instead of pale with hunger. "Mama Keisha, look." She held up a drawing she'd made of their family, complete with stick figures of all 8 of them standing in front of their apartment building. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Keisha said, her heart warming at the word mama. She pinned the drawing to their small refrigeration unit next to Taiwu's perfect math scores and Yuna's star chart. For good behavior, the apartment buzzed with activity as everyone prepared for their assigned tasks. Sora helped the younger ones pack their school supplies while Jinho checked the daily weather report on his handheld device. Through the window, Keisha could see the morning transport shuttles lifting off from the spaceport, carrying workers to the outer mining stations. "Miss Keisha," Minnow peered at her elbow. "I finished organizing the bill payment schedule like you taught me. The housing credit is due tomorrow, but we have enough in the account now." Keisha nodded proudly. Teaching the older children basic financial management had been one of her first priorities. On Earth, she'd worked as a budget analyst before losing her job to automation. Here, those skills were proving invaluable. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. The security screen showed a stern-faced man in a colonial administration uniform. Keisha's stomach tightened as she recognized Administrator Park, the bureaucrat who'd been questioning her authority over the children. "Kids, finish getting ready for school," she said calmly. Though her voice carried a warning tone the older ones had learned to recognize, Park entered without waiting for permission, his scanner tablet already recording everything. He was a thin man with cold eyes who seemed to disapprove of anything that didn't fit neatly into his regulations. "Miss Washington," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. I've been reviewing your situation. You have no legal guardianship, papers, no adoption certificates, no marriage license to their deceased father. Yet you're living here, making decisions for 7 minors. Their father contracted me in good faith. Keisha replied firmly, crossing her arms. I'm honoring that contract and caring for his children as he would have wanted. Contracts don't grant parental rights, Park countered, tapping his tablet. These children should be in proper foster care, distributed among certified families throughout the sector. Behind him, Jinho stepped forward, his young face set with determination. Sir, we don't want to be separated. Miss Keisha is taking good care of us. Yeah. Yuna piped up from behind her older brother. She makes the best pancakes in the whole galaxy. Park frowned at the interruption. Children, you don't understand the complexities of legal guardianship. Miss Washington is not qualified to. She's more qualified than anyone. Sora interrupted. Her voice steady despite her youth. She stayed when she could have left. She used her own money to help us when no one else cared. Through the window, a massive cargo hauler descended toward the mining district, its anti-gravity engines creating ripples in the morning air. The daily routine of the colony continued while this crucial confrontation played out in there. Small apartment, Park's tablet, beeped with an incoming message. He glanced at it and his expression grew more suspicious. Miss Washington, I've received reports from neighbors about irregularities. Some question whether someone of your background can properly care for Korean children. Keisha felt her temper flare. But she kept her voice level. My background. And what exactly does that mean? Administrator Park. Before he could answer, Minna burst through the front door, still wearing her school uniform. I came back because I forgot my... She stopped, seeing the tense scene. What's happening? I was just explaining to your classmates yesterday, Minna said, looking directly at Park, how Miss Keisha chose to stay when she didn't have to. She could have gone back to Earth, but she became our family instead. That makes her more our mother than blood ever could. The other children gathered round Keisha, forming a protective circle. Even little Yoonji seemed to sense the tension. Clutching her stuffed animal tighter, Park looked uncomfortable faced with their united front. This emotional attachment doesn't change the legal facts. I'll be filing a report with social services. They'll want to conduct a full investigation. Let them investigate, Keisha said calmly. They'll find 7 children who are healthy, attending school regularly, and living in a stable home environment. A transport shuttle rumbled overhead. Heading toward the outer colonies, Park glanced at his chronometer and seemed eager to leave. We'll be in touch, Miss Washington. Don't make any plans to leave the colony. After he left, the children clustered round Keisha. She hugged them close. Smelling the familiar scent of their shared life together, breakfast food, clean laundry, and the indefinable warmth of home. Are they going to take us away? Jamin asked in a small voice. Not if I can help it, Keisha promised, though her heart raced with uncertainty about what challenges lay ahead. The morning alarm didn't sound at 0630 like usual, instead. Keisha woke to the harsh buzz of the door chime at 05 for 5 hours. Through the security screen, she saw 3 officials in dark uniforms standing outside with electronic tablets and serious expressions. Social Services, announced the lead officer, a woman with steel grey hair and no-nonsense eyes. We have emergency custody orders for 7 minors currently residing at this address. Behind her stood 2 other officials and a security droid, whose red scanning lights swept the hallway. The children had gathered in the main room, still in their sleep clothes, eyes wide with fear. You can't take them, Keisha said, blocking the doorway. This is their home, Miss Washington. You have no legal standing here. the officer replied, holding up her tablet. These children will be transported to approved foster facilities throughout the sector within the hour. But Keisha had been preparing for this moment. 2 weeks ago, while cleaning Han Solo's personal belongings, she discovered something hidden in his old mining equipment, geological survey data, mineral composition reports, and most importantly, legal documents showing unclaimed mining rights to a section of Beta 9's asteroid belt. Actually, I do have legal standing, Keisha said, producing her own tablet. I've been in contact with Beta Mining Corporation's legal department as Han Solo Kim's contracted spouse. I inherit his mining claims. The social services officer frowned. That's impossible. You were never legally married, but I was legally contracted. Keisha continued, under Colonial Mining Law 2387. Spousal contracts carry the same inheritance rights as marriage when it comes to resource claims. I've already filed the paperwork. Through the window, she could see a sleek corporate transport descending toward their building. Right on time, the elevator opened, and 3 people in expensive business suits emerged. The lead figure was Director Chen from Beta Mining Corporation, a woman Keisha had been negotiating with through holographic meetings for the past week. Miss Washington, Director Chen said with a professional smile. I trust you're ready to proceed with our agreement. The social services officer looked confused. What agreement? Miss Washington has discovered extremely valuable mineral deposits in the outer asteroid field, Director Chen explained. Her late partner's survey data shows rare earth elements worth approximately 50 million. Credits, all eyes turned to Keisha, who held up a data chip containing Han Solo's geological surveys. I'm trading these mining rights to Beta Mining Corporation in exchange. They're paying off all of Han Solo's debts, providing permanent housing for our family, and offering me a consulting position with their geological survey team. Little Yunji ran to Keisha's side, clutching her stuffed animal. Are the bad people taking us away? Mama. No, sweetheart, Keisha said, lifting the 4-year-old into her arms. Nobody's taking anyone anywhere. The social services officer activated her communicator. I need to speak with my supervisor immediately. While she stepped aside to make her call, Jinho approached Keisha with tears in his eyes. You're giving up 50 million credits for us? Money isn't family, Keisha replied simply. You 7 are worth more than all the rare minerals in the galaxy. An hour later, they were all seated in the colony's administrative courthouse. The hearing room was packed with curious residents who had heard about the unusual custody case. Judge Martinez, a fair-minded woman who had served the colony for 20 years, reviewed the documents with careful attention. This is highly irregular, she said, looking over her glasses at Keisha. You're essentially trading a fortune to keep these children together. Yes, Your Honor, Keisha replied. Because that's what families do for each other. The prosecutor from social services stood up. Your Honor, regardless of financial arrangements. Miss Washington lacks the proper credentials to care for 7 children. She has no previous parenting experience. No psychological evaluation. No. Objection. Sora interrupted, standing up in the gallery. Can I speak? Judge Martinez nodded. This is informal proceedings. Go ahead, young lady. Sora walked to the front of the room, her voice shaking but determined. Your Honor, Miss Keisha didn't just take care of us, she made us a family again. When our father died, we thought our world had ended. We were hungry, scared, and alone. Tears streamed down her face as she continued, but she stayed. She could have gone back to Earth and lived comfortably. Instead, she chose 7 strangers who had nothing to offer except love. Min stood up next. She taught me how to budget our credits so we'd never go hungry again. Jinho joined them. She helped me with my engineering homework and told me I could be anything I wanted to be. One by one, all 7 children shared their stories. Tao talked about how Keisha had encouraged his artistic talents. Yuno described the bedtime stories that chased away her nightmares. Jaemin demonstrated the reading skills Keisha had patiently taught him. Even little Yoonji toddled forward and hugged the judge's leg. Mama Keisha makes the best pancakes in the whole universe, she declared seriously. The courtroom erupted in gentle laughter, and Judge Martinez wiped her eyes. I've seen many custody cases in my career, but never one where the bond between guardian and children was so clearly genuine. She banged her gavel. I hereby grant full legal guardianship of the Kim children to Keisha Washington, effective immediately. The courtroom cheered. Even Administrator Park, who had been watching from the back, stepped forward with a grudging smile. Miss Washington, he said formally, on behalf of Colony Beta 9, I officially welcome you and your family as permanent residents. Outside, the twin sons of Beta 9 shone brightly as 8 people who had chosen to become a family walked home together, their future finally secure among the stars. The morning sun of Beta 9 streamed through the large windows of the Washington Kim Learning Center, casting rainbow patterns across the holographic displays where children from across the colony practiced their lessons. Keisha smiled as she watched a young Centauri girl with blue-tinted skin work alongside human children, all of them struggling with the same math problems that had once challenged her own kids. Mrs. Washington called out Zara, a 10-year-old, whose parents worked on the orbital mining platforms. I finally understand quantum mathematics. That's wonderful, Zara, Keisha replied, checking the girl's work on her tablet. The tutoring center had grown from a small idea into the colony's most successful educational facility. Parents from every species and background brought their children here, knowing that Keisha's patient teaching methods worked miracles through the center's main window. She could see the bustling life of Beta 9. Hover cars carried families to work while automated delivery drones buzzed between buildings. A massive transport ship was docking at the spaceport, bringing supplies and new colonists from Earth and the outer worlds. Mom, I'm heading to the university now, Sura announced, entering the center with her arms full of advanced engineering textbooks at 17. She was the youngest student ever accepted to Colonial University's Stellar Engineering program. Her acceptance letter was still pinned proudly on the center's bulletin board. Drive carefully, Keisha said, hugging her eldest daughter. Remember, you're having dinner with the Andorian ambassador's family tonight for your cultural exchange. Project. I know. Mom, I've been practicing my Andorian greetings all week. Sora grinned and headed out, her hoverboard humming softly as she glided toward the university district. The afternoon brought Jinho home from his job at the Beta Mining Corporation's main office. Now 15, he worked part-time in their geological survey department, using skills he'd learned from studying his father's old research. His supervisor had already mentioned the possibility of a full scholarship to the mining academy when he graduated. Mom, look what I found today, Jinho said excitedly, pulling out a small crystal that glowed within a light. It's a red dilithium, fragment from the new asteroid field. My supervisor said I have a real talent for identifying valuable minerals. Your father would be so proud, Keisha said, examining the beautiful crystal. He always said you had his eye for geology. The learning center buzzed with activity as more children arrived for evening classes. Minna, now 13, helped teach the younger students basic computer programming. She had discovered a natural talent for working with AI systems and had already designed 3 educational programs that were being used throughout the colony. The new students from the Rigel system are having trouble with Standard Galactic, Minna reported. But I created a translation program that helps them learn while they play games. Tau, 11 now, with setting up his art display in the center's gallery space. His paintings of Beta 9's landscapes had become famous throughout the colony, and several had been purchased by off-world collectors. His latest piece showed the colony's skyline during a meteor shower, with brilliant streaks of light painting the night sky. Taiwu. The Vulcan trade delegation wants to commission a painting of their home world, Keisha told him. They were impressed by your work at last month's cultural exhibition. 8-year-old Yuna rushed in from her gymnastics class, still wearing her practice uniform. She had become the colony's junior champion in zero-gravity athletics and was already being scouted by teams from Mars and the Jupiter colonies. Mom, guess what? Coach says I might qualify for the intercolonial games next year. Yuna bounced excitedly. Can you imagine me competing against kids from all over the galaxy? 6-year-old Jamin appeared next, his school tablet showing perfect scores in all his subjects. The boy who had once been too shy to speak was now one of the brightest students in his class. Already reading at a level far above his age, I finished my report on Earth history, he announced proudly. Mrs. Peterson said it was the best she'd ever read from a first-year student. Finally, little Yoonji, now 5, came running in from her day at the colony's kindergarten. She had grown into a confident, happy child who showed no signs of the trauma that had once given her nightmares. Mona Keisha. She called out, launching herself into Keisha's arms. I made a new friend today. Her name is Kola and she's from Andoria and she has the coolest blue skin and we're going to be best friends forever. That evening, as Beta 9 prepared for its annual Founders' Day celebration, the streets filled with families from every corner of the galaxy. The colony had grown tremendously in the past year, becoming a major hub for interstellar trade and cultural exchange. The celebration's main stage was set up in the central plaza, decorated with flags from dozens of worlds. Keisha found her seat in the front row, reserved for honor families. As the cultural program began, ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species announced the master of ceremonies. A tall Tellite with ceremonial robes. We present the Washington Kim family, performing traditional songs from both Earth and Korea. Keisha watched with pride as her 7 children took the stage. Sora played the gayajum, a traditional Korean string instrument, while Jinho accompanied her on Earth drums. Mina and Taiwu sing a beautiful harmony in both Korean and English, their voices blending perfectly. Yuna performed a graceful dance that combined Korean traditional movements with the flowing motions of zero-gravity ballet. Jaemin recited a poem he had written about families among the stars, and little Yoonji charmed the audience by teaching them simple Korean words. The performance ended with all 8 of them singing together, a song that blended Korean melodies with Earth rhythms, creating something entirely new and beautiful. The crowd erupted in applause, and Keisha felt tears of joy streaming down her face. After the celebration, they walked home through the quiet streets of Beta 9. The colony's twin moons hung like lanterns in the night sky, casting silver light on the buildings where thousands of families from across the galaxy had made their homes. Mom, Sora said as they reached their apartment. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Did you ever regret staying? I mean, you could have had a completely different life back on Earth. Keisha looked round their comfortable home, expanded now to accommodate their growing family. The walls were covered with artwork, achievement certificates, and photos of all their adventures together. The dinner table was set for 8, with each place marked by handmade name cards that Yoonji had created. You know what? Keisha said, gathering all 7 children round her. I came here looking for one person to love me. instead. I found 7 people who taught me what love really means. Outside their window, the lights of Beta 9 twinkled like stars. And in the distance, they could see the launching lights of ships, heading to distant worlds. But for the Washington Kim family, home was right here, in this small apartment where 8 hearts had chosen to beat as one. Jinho started clearing the dinner dishes while Soa helped Yoonji with her bedtime routine. Mina and Taiwu discussed plans for their next school project, and Yuna practiced her gymnastics moves in the living room. Jaemin curled up with a book, reading quietly in his favorite corner. Keisha smiled, watching her chosen family fill their home with love and laughter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and adventures, but tonight they were exactly where they belonged, together among the stars. In a place they had built with determination, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond that proved family isn't just about blood, but about the people who choose to love you no matter what. The end.